So in previous lecture, we talked about the four resources of market failure and the corresponding government intervention. However, the government intervention is not perfect, and it can cause more problem. So in that case, we call the government failure. So the definition for government failure is the government intervention fails to improve economic outcomes and may worsen the outcomes. Most of the time, the government failure will relate to the waste, the perceptions of the waste. So the public perception is that the government isn't producing as many services as it could with the resources at its disposal. So this inefficiency pushed the economy inside the production possibility curve. So please look at the curve on the right-hand side. So the social optimal mix will be the point X. However, since the government cannot collect enough information or make the wrong decision, the final output can be G2, which has more health care, less other goods, G4, which has a fewer health care, but more other goods, or even G1. So you can see the G1 even worse. They offer the fewer health care compared with the market mix. But it also can cause even worse situation as the G3. So we know any point located on the production possibility curve, that means the resources are efficiently used to produce the goods. If any point inside the production possibility curve, that means we have efficient production. So which means it's a kind of waste. So think about every day how many people have already saying the word like, oh, well, the government wastes the money on support the national defense. Yes, that is the example for the perception of the waste. So we can really not blame the government, because think about how many people work for the government. Maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. But think about how many people the government need to regulate. So that is a huge group of people need to be regulated by the government. So that's why sometimes the government cannot get enough information. They will make the wrong decision. So the public good or the government are good. So we need to know some benefit cost analysis. So for the private sector, so we know for the private sector, if we let the private sector to run the market, we know the benefits and the costs usually accurate to the same person. So people can pretty well to evaluate the benefit and cost for certain behavior. And it makes it easy to compare the two and make a decision. So you just need to compare the benefit and the cost. But for the government intervention, the benefits and the cost are usually accurate to different groups, and it makes it more difficult for the decision maker. So how can they balance the benefit and the cost for each individual within the groups, and how can they get accurate information from a group of the people? So the politics enter into the decision as well, and the decision maker may have no stake in the outcomes. So that's really required. The government should have a really good working ethic. If they don't have the good working ethic, and the policy can be super bad, and it will harm the whole nation. So what does society want to produce? So that's really a big question. So can either the market-based or the state-run system or the combination of the two produce the mix of the output desired by the society in general? So this is the question raised at the beginning of this chapter. So the answer is a pure market system will not produce adequate quantity of some goods. As we mentioned, the public goods, and the goods have the positive externality. And also a pure government system cannot determine the mix of the output desired by the buyers and sellers, because we just mentioned for the government, they have a hard time to gather enough information to know the whole society. And also for some policy maker, they may not take the state, so they may not fully consider about the risk for certain policy. However, by trial and error, a combination of these two systems may arrive at the optimal mix of the goods produced. So just be patient for the government, and try to have a positive attitude toward the government, and let's work together to build a very healthy market.